Right now, someone is sitting in their car outside their office, unable to walk through doors they have entered thousands of times. Someone else is lying next to their partner of 20 years, feeling like they're sleeping beside a stranger. Another person is staring at their reflection, wondering who that hollow-eyed ghost in the mirror might be. This isn't depression or crisis in any ordinary sense. Carl Jung identified this as the void, a psychological state where everything that once held meaning empties out, where every structure that gave life shape crumbles from within, where you become a stranger to your own existence. Jung didn't just study the void academically. He lived through it for 4 harrowing years. What he discovered in that darkness revolutionized our understanding of psychological transformation. The void isn't breakdown, but breakthrough. Not ending, but beginning. Not punishment, but birth canal. Today I'm revealing Jung's map of the void, what it actually is, why your psyche creates it, and how to navigate it without losing your mind. Because Jung discovered that the void isn't something that happens to you. It's something that happens for you, orchestrated by intelligence deeper than consciousness itself. Here's what makes the void so disorienting. It doesn't announce itself with drama. There's no triggering event, no clear beginning, no obvious cause. One day you simply realize you've been going through the motions for weeks or months, that life has become performance, that nothing reaches you anymore. Jung understood the void as the psyche's nuclear option for transformation. When gentle nudges toward growth fail, when you ignore dreams and synchronicities and inner callings, when the gap between authentic self and lived life becomes canyon-wide, the psyche initiates total system collapse. Not to destroy you, but to rebuild you from foundation up. The terrifying part is that the void dismantles from inside out. External life might look identical while internal architecture crumbles. You maintain routines while meaning evacuates. You perform relationships while connection dies. You achieve goals while purpose vanishes. It's like being awake during surgery on your soul, conscious but unable to stop what's happening. Jung called this necessary suffering. The psyche won't let you live a fraction of your truth indefinitely. Eventually, it demands all of you, and if the current structure can't hold all of you, that structure has to go. The void is controlled demolition, making space for authentic reconstruction. But first comes the falling, and Jung discovered the falling follows very specific patterns. The first pattern Jung identified is how the void announces itself through emptiness that makes no logical sense. Everything in your life might be objectively good. Career thriving, relationships stable, health fine, yet inside there's nothing. Not sadness or anger or fear. Nothing. A vacancy where feeling should be. This emptiness differs from depression's heaviness. Depression feels like carrying stones. The void feels like becoming hollow, same outer shape but nothing inside. You go through motions perfectly while wondering why you're bothering. You succeed at tasks while forgetting their purpose. You interact normally while feeling like you're watching someone else's life through thick glass. Jung distinguished this from ordinary numbness or burnout. The void's emptiness is selective and intelligent. Certain capacities remain fully functional. You can work, think, communicate, while others completely offline. Specifically, the ability to generate or perceive personal meaning stops working, like losing one specific frequency while all others remain clear. During Jung's own void period, he described maintaining his psychiatric practice, seeing patients, writing notes, appearing completely normal while internally experiencing what he called a living death. Not metaphorically, but experientially, alive in body, dead in soul, existing in between states that shouldn't be simultaneous. This emptiness serves a specific function that Jung identified through careful observation. The psyche withdraws energy from current structures before dismantling them, like draining water from pipes before winter. The emptiness isn't absence of meaning, but meaning liquefying, becoming fluid, preparing to reshape into new form. The intelligence of this emptiness reveals itself through what remains and what vanishes. Core survival functions continue, basic relational capacity persists, but anything connected to constructed identity, personal meaning, or ego purpose, that empties completely. The psyche surgically removes exactly what needs transformation while preserving what needs continuity. Yet most people fight this emptiness desperately, trying to fill it with activities, achievements, relationships, substances, anything to not feel the nothing. But Jung discovered that fighting the void's emptiness only intensifies it. Jung's second discovery about the void is particularly cruel. Everything that previously helped you cope now makes things worse. The strategies that carried you through past difficulties become exactly what trap you deeper in the void. Your strengths become quicksand. The achiever tries achieving harder, but accomplishments feel like ash. The helper helps more desperately, but caring has evacuated. The thinker analyzes frantically, but understanding explains nothing. The spiritual seeker meditates longer, but finds only more emptiness. Every tool that once worked now accelerates the dissolution. Jung observed this pattern repeatedly and realized its necessity. The void isn't just dismantling your life, it's dismantling your ways of constructing life. If your old tools still worked, you'd just rebuild the same prison with better furniture. The tools themselves have to fail for genuine transformation to occur. During his void years, Jung tried using his formidable intellect to understand what was happening. The more he analyzed, the more confused he became. His theoretical frameworks, his psychological insights, his vast knowledge, all of it made the experience worse, not better. He wrote about feeling betrayed by his own mind, the tool he'd trusted most becoming his tormentor. This reversal extends beyond mental strategies to emotional and spiritual ones too. The positive thinker's optimism becomes toxic positivity that denies necessary darkness. The warrior's strength becomes rigid armor, preventing necessary vulnerability. The mystic's transcendence becomes dissociation, avoiding necessary embodiment. Jung identified this as the void's teaching method, showing you the limitation of every partial strategy by having it fail completely. You discover that achievement can't create meaning, understanding can't create purpose, even spirituality can't create authentic existence. Every partial solution has to fail for wholeness to emerge. The people who navigate the void most quickly are those who recognize this reversal and stop trying to use old tools on new territory. They accept that what got them here won't get them there. They let their strengths fail, their strategies collapse, their reliable methods prove useless. They stop trying to fix the void and let the void fix them. This leads directly to the void's most counterintuitive demand. The third truth Jung discovered contradicts every instinct. The only way through the void is complete surrender, not passive resignation, but active cooperation with dissolution. Not giving up, but giving in to intelligence greater than ego comprehension. Jung found that the void operates like quicksand. The The more you struggle, the faster you sink. Every attempt to escape tightens its grip. Every strategy to overcome strengthens its hold. But when you stop fighting, something unexpected happens. The dissolution continues, but suffering decreases. The falling continues, but terror transforms into strange peace. This surrender isn't intellectual decision, but embodied release. You can't think your way into surrender or will yourself to let go. Surrender happens when exhaustion finally overcomes resistance, when you've tried everything and everything has failed, when fighting costs more than you have left to spend. Jung reached this point after years of fighting his void. He tried every psychological technique, every analytical framework, every coping strategy. Nothing worked. Finally, depleted beyond measure, he stopped trying to escape and started observing what wanted to happen. He stopped asking, "How do I fix this?" and started asking, "What is this trying to show me?" The moment of surrender feels like death, because psychologically it is death. Ego death, control death, identity death. Everything that says I relaxes its grip and lets dissolution happen. You stop being the subject, fighting against experience, and become experience itself, flowing with currents you can't see toward destinations you can't imagine. Jung noticed that surrender in the void creates immediate changes. Anxiety decreases because you stop fighting what's happening. Energy returns because you're not wasting it on resistance. Clarity emerges because you're finally seeing what is rather than imposing what should be. The void transforms from enemy to teacher the moment you stop making it wrong. But surrender doesn't mean passive waiting. Jung discovered there are specific practices that work within the void once you've stopped fighting it. If you're recognizing your own void experience in these descriptions, if you're feeling that mix of relief and terror that comes from finally having language for your dissolution, stay with me, because what comes next is crucial for navigation. Before we explore Jung's practical discoveries about working with the void, rather than against it, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Jung's next insights reveal what actually helps when nothing helps. Jung's fourth discovery revolutionized how to navigate the void. When rational mind fails, symbolic mind activates. The void communicates through dreams, synchronicities, body symptoms, and spontaneous images, languages that bypass conscious comprehension and speak directly to psyche. During the void, your dreams become more vivid than waking life. Not random dreams, but what Jung called big dreams. Archetypal communications that feel more like visions than sleep experiences. These dreams don't require interpretation because their impact is immediate, their message felt rather than understood. Jung documented his own void dreams meticulously. Dreams of descending into Earth's depths, dreams of dying and being reborn as different beings. Dreams of cosmic emptiness that contained everything. These weren't symbolic puzzles, but direct transmissions from the transforming psyche, showing him what was happening at levels consciousness couldn't access. The void also speaks through synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that increase dramatically during dissolution. You think of someone and they call after years of silence. You randomly open a book to exactly the passage you need. Strangers speak words that answer inner questions. Reality becomes responsive in ways that defy rational explanation. Jung understood synchronicities as the psyche's guidance system when ego's navigation fails. They're not magical thinking, but recognition of connections that always existed but couldn't be perceived through ordinary consciousness. The void thins the veil between inner and outer, revealing their interpenetration. Body symptoms become another language in the void, not medical issues but somatic communications. Your chest might physically ache with the weight of unlived life. Your throat might close around unspoken truths. Your legs might weaken from carrying false identity. The body speaks what consciousness can't articulate. Jung learned to read these symptoms as precise communications. Exhaustion that forces rest when ego would push forward. Illness that creates necessary isolation. Anxiety that signals moving too fast through transformation. The body maintains wisdom when mind loses all bearings. Spontaneous images arise too, not during meditation, but during ordinary moments. Washing dishes and suddenly seeing yourself as tree losing leaves. Walking and experiencing yourself as river changing course. Sitting in traffic and knowing yourself as butterfly dissolving in chrysalis. These aren't metaphors, but direct perception of what's actually happening psychologically. Understanding how the void communicates changes everything about navigation, which brings us to Jung's discovery about time in the void. Jung's fifth insight about the void challenges our basic assumptions. Psychological transformation doesn't follow chronological time. In the void, past, present, and future collapse into eternal now, where all healing happens simultaneously across every timeline. During the void, you might relive childhood trauma as if it's happening currently, while simultaneously experiencing yourself as an elder looking back. You're every age and no age. Yesterday feels like years ago. Last year feels like yesterday. Time becomes fluid, dreamlike, absolutely unreliable as organizing principle. Jung experienced this temporal dissolution intensely. He wrote about being simultaneously his current self, his childhood self, and ancient selves that seemed to exist before this lifetime. Not imagination, but direct experience of consciousness existing outside linear time, touching all points of existence simultaneously. This time, confusion serves transformation. Linear time keeps experiences separate. Childhood trauma stays in childhood. Current patterns stay in present. Future potential stays in future. But transformation requires integration across all time. The wounded child needs to meet the capable adult. The current struggle needs to meet future wisdom. Everything needs to touch everything for wholeness to emerge. The void creates what Jung called temporal simultaneity, all times existing at once, allowing total reorganization. Healing happens not just for current self, but retroactively for every past self, and proactively for every future self. You're not just transforming, you're transforming across all temporal dimensions. This explains why you can't measure progress through the void. There's no forward because all directions exist simultaneously. No improvement because you're getting better and worse at the same time. No distance traveled because you're already at destination while still at origin. Linear progress metrics become meaningless. Jung advised stopping all temporal measurement during the void. Don't count days, track weeks, measure months. Don't compare your timeline to others. Don't project when it will end. Exist in the eternal now, where transformation actually happens. Outside time's artificial boundaries. Yet, even understanding the void's temporality doesn't prepare you for its most challenging aspect. The sixth pattern Jung identified in the void is radical estrangement, Everyone becomes unrecognizable, including and especially yourself. People you've known for decades feel like strangers. Your own reflection looks alien. Your thoughts seem to come from someone else. Complete disconnection from everything familiar, including your own identity. This isn't ordinary alienation or social withdrawal. In the void, the very capacity for recognition breaks down. Your partner's face becomes unfamiliar mask. Your children seem like strangers you're inexplicably responsible for. Your own name sounds foreign when spoken. The entire human world becomes incomprehensible theater. Jung went through this estrangement intensely. He wrote about sitting with family, feeling like an anthropologist observing unknown species, listening to familiar voices that seemed to come from another dimension, looking at his own hands and not understanding their connection to his consciousness. This estrangement extends inward too. Your own thoughts feel like someone else's. Your emotions seem to belong to a stranger. Your memories feel like stories about someone you've never met. The voice in your head speaking these thoughts, whose voice is that? The feelings in this body, whose feelings are these? Complete discontinuity between consciousness and everything it experiences. Jung understood this as necessary disidentification. You can't become who you truly are while still identified with who you've been. The estrangement breaks unconscious identification with everything: roles, relationships, even your own personality. It forces consciousness to recognize itself as separate from all content, all form, all identity. The loneliness of this estrangement is absolute. Not social loneliness, but existential aloneness. You're alone in a way that no company can cure, because the one seeking company doesn't exist in any recognizable form. You're homesick for a self that's dissolving, lonely for a life that's ending, estranged from an existence that was never really yours. Yet, Jung discovered that this absolute estrangement creates space for authentic connection, but first comes the final dissolution. Jung's final discovery about the void revealed its deepest mystery. After everything else dissolves, identity, meaning, time, recognition, one thing remains: the witness, the one watching the dissolution, the awareness aware of emptiness. This witness seems like solid ground, the one thing that can't be lost. Then it too begins to dissolve. This is the void's final movement, the witness witnessing its own dissolution, not just ego death, but death of the one watching ego die. Not just identity ending, but the ender ending. Complete recursive collapse where consciousness watches itself cease to exist while somehow continuing. Jung described this as the most terrifying and liberating moment of his entire void experience. The observer he'd unconsciously identified as his true self, the one constant through all change, even this began to fade. Yet as the witness dissolved, something else emerged. Not new identity, but pure awareness without center, experience without experiencer. This final dissolution can't be understood intellectually because intellect requires subject-object duality that no longer exists. You become the dissolution itself, rather than someone going through dissolution. The void voids even the one experiencing the void. Complete recursion into nothing that's somehow everything. Jung found this represented in every mystical tradition. The eye seeing itself, the dreamer awakening to find they're the dream, consciousness recognizing it has no location. But these were lived experience, not philosophical concepts. The witness dissolving, while somehow continuing to witness its own dissolution. What emerges after the witness dissolves isn't new self, but selfless awareness. Not no one, but everyone. Not nothing, but everything before it becomes something. Jung called this the self with capital S. Not personal self, but impersonal totality that includes and transcends all identity. From this selfless awareness, reconstruction begins. But what gets rebuilt is fundamentally different from what dissolved. You don't become new person. You become person who knows they're not person. You don't get new identity. You get identity that knows its costume. You don't find new meaning. You become meaning itself. Jung's complete map of the void reveals it as precise psychological process, not random suffering. The inexplicable emptiness, the failure of old solutions, the necessity of surrender, the symbolic communications, the temporal dissolution, the radical estrangement, the witness dissolving. Each stage serves transformation that couldn't happen any other way. The void takes everything that isn't essential and leaves only what can't be destroyed. It reveals that you were never your roles, achievements, relationships, or even your personality. You're the awareness that remains when all of that dissolves, the consciousness that continues when everything else ends. Understanding the void doesn't make it comfortable, but does make it navigable. You stop taking dissolution personally. Stop fighting intelligence greater than ego. Stop trying to maintain what needs to die. You cooperate with your own transformation, even when you can't understand it. Jung's greatest insight was recognizing the void as birth canal, not grave. What feels like ending is beginning. What seems like loss is finding. What appears as nothing is everything returning to source before taking new form. If you're in the void now, if these words are finding you in that strange nowhere between who you were and who you're becoming, Jung would want you to know that you're exactly where you need to be. The dissolution isn't mistake, but method. The emptiness isn't absence, but presence. The falling isn't failure, but foundation. You will survive this, but more importantly, you'll be transformed by it. Not into someone else, but into who you've always been beneath the accumulated false layers. The void doesn't create new self. It reveals eternal self that was always there, waiting beneath the noise. Trust the intelligence of your dissolution. Trust that your psyche knows what it's doing even when consciousness is terrified. Trust that what's falling needed to fall and what remains is what's real. Trust the void, even when you can't trust anything else. The void will end when its work is complete, not when you figure out how to end it. Your job isn't to escape, but to participate. Not to understand, but to experience. Not to maintain, but to allow. Let the void do what only the void can do. Return you to source so you can emerge authentic. If you're navigating the void, or sense its approach, subscribe to join others who choose transformation over comfort, depth over surface, authenticity over performance. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now.